So here what we did for Mexico recently with Luke Harriman and Zhorin Moreno. So this is typical solution for those kind of problems. So you have this value function for people who never joined the more beneficial, risky part of the economy. Also people who don't have any capital constraints, who are always benefit from getting higher returns from their investment for their occupation. I mean, you can in this model you do not really differentiate between higher return because you're investing in a more risky asset or because you're involved in more risky entrepreneurial activity. So more risky entrepreneurial activity is kind of risky asset in your portfolio. So you can combine of you can be employed as a labor worker and you can start your own business in the evening. So that's how and those people are actually saving money before they can pay up startup cost to actually join the system. The startup cost in this model is kind of funny. It's not just the cost that you go to bank and you open deposit account. It's more like the cost of actually creating the whole bank branch, you're getting road conditions, the road, and so it's basically the whole infrastructure cost that people who join the system share. So we're using this model. We modeled the development in Mexico from 1998 to 2006. This is the other outcome of this model is so-called policy function. It's basically the decisions that people make. It's, you remember the rocket example. It's the decision that missile is making when they hit something. So when people hit this particular capital level because they were involved in some project, they got money back, or they accumulated wealth because they were saving money to join the system. So when they hit this capital level, they suddenly decided to increase their saving rate or they decrease their saving rate. So those people are actually increasing their saving rates because they're preparing to join the system. So their saving rate is kind of high. And what's interesting here is that if you never join the financial system, you save a lot because you're not insured against those shocks, so you have to save more. And people who are already in the system, they save less, so those kind of boundary in the system. People between are first saving a lot, they stop saving because they already joined the system, they don't need to save anymore. So this model kind of give you interest rate dynamics that's not really trivial. That's interesting feature. And those are actual data compared to model. What this is a model prediction, and those are actual growth in Mexico. And you see here this huge drop. This is famous peso crisis. So of course we cannot do anything about this. This model is kind of limited. So once you join the system, you cannot unjoin the system. And of course, when the crisis hit, no one wanted to be in the financial system anymore. So of course, the risky return just dropped hugely. So people switch into this kind of subsystem existence. And if you look at the access to financial system, which is generated endogenously in this model, you can see firstly the model kind of follows the trend in actual data until 95, somewhere 94, 95, and then it diverges hugely. Because model still predicts that you're supposed to get the benefit from this risky activities, but people are just not joining anymore. They don't want to be there. But then, starting 2000, something happened, and then again, the real data kind of followed the trend in the model predictions. So that's what we did. And of course, this is the wealth evolution of this model. So you see there's a kind of non-trivial dynamics, and that's initially, this model was developed to explain so-called Kuznets dynamics for developing countries, that you often see inequality rising when the big country starts to develop really quick. And some people say it's a very bad thing because inequality is always a bad thing, so you should take away money from rich, give it to poor. But there is then the classical economic models are not explaining this kind of phenomenon very well, so that's why this model kind of tried to explain the Kuznets dynamics. And tries to explain why the inequality can increase while actually benefiting the economy. So if you just make a judgment on kind of inequality index, you can completely get really bad judgment. because sometimes inequality grows because people are kind of. I mean, there are certain people who cannot just join it, so they were forced into this kind of low producing stage. But people who can join it, it suddenly starts growing really quickly. So that's why inequality starts to diverge. But that's not because something bad happens, but it's because something good happens. Some people kind of join it and they get the benefit of more higher returns. And here we try to estimate the effect of government policy in Mexico of 2002-2006. And what we did here, we fixed initial condition on 2002 in the provinces that has this called Bansefi, it's a government, some government branch that sets its bank branches in certain provinces. In other provinces, there are only commercial banks. So they try to stimulate by setting branches in particular areas to stimulate the economy. So here is we have non-Bansefi provinces, and we have participation rate dynamics for non-Bansefi provinces, US Bansefi provinces. And you see that initially participation rate in Bansefi provinces is kind of a little bit higher. And what's more interesting is that it grows much quicker than it grows in non-Bansefi. It's a small difference, but it's not noticeable difference because everything else is equal. All the models parameters are the same for both provinces. And well, you can interpret it's kind of that there is the startup cost to join the financial system is artificially made smaller by Bansefi intervention, so they kind of getting more people into the system that there should be, well, the model is. And then of course you have much bigger, somewhat bigger drop in financial participation here and somewhat smaller here. So how you can interpret it, it's just when you join it, you're supposed to reap some benefit, and what those benefit is not not happening. So some people get disappointed if they pull out, and some bad shocks happens, they pull out. And so you have to be really careful with those government intervention. You can see somewhat faster growth, but you can also see somewhat bigger disappointment when something that you expect to happen didn't happen. Now, another model that we were trying to put into policy uses this occupational choice model. And this model also includes business startup cost, tax. So what happens in this economy is it's very classical model that you maximize the companies maximize the profit, this production function. Then they pay wages, labor, and they pay startup cost. The startup cost is kind of different in this model compared to classical case. You have a friction, you have a team people. And your wealth in the next time period will be different compared if you stay at subsistence level, if you were working in agriculture, you get stable but very low return. If you work for higher, you have wages, plus you pay some cost of living in more advanced area. You know, if you move from village to city, you have kind of increased spending and living there. So this is important because if your wages are low enough, you kind of go to living in the cities, you go back to village, and you stop being a worker, you stop being hired for the labor, you go to subsistence level, and that's what actually we see in Thailand. Some people go back and forth from rural areas, depending on the market condition. And of course, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a profit, and again, you pay some cost of living in advanced area. And those startup costs, they are not constant. Those startup costs are taken out from random distribution, so they're different each time period. In this distribution, in this particular case, we add up spatial dimension into it. So it's different. If you live closer to the more advanced area, your startup costs are supposed to be lower. This part of the model, we actually estimate those costs.